So now here we are back to Ibn Hajar talking about Ijazah. And so he says, وَأَطْلَقُ الْمُشَافَهَةَ فِي الْإِجَازَةِ الْمُتَلَفَّظِ بِهَا. They used mushafaha. That means to say by the lip, from the word shafa. They would say mushafaha, shafahani, what literally would mean he told me by lip, for example. That's what they would say, shafahani, but for an ijazah. Al-ijazati al-mutalaffazi biha, an ijazah that was pronounced. That means he says, ajaztuka, I give you an ijazah. So, mashallah. وَكَذَا الْمُكَاتَبَةَ فِي الْإِجَازَةِ الْمَكْتُوبِ بِهَا. So that's what they said. He said tajawuzan, like not being literal, stretching the words, stretching those words, using those words in loose sense. وَكَذَا الْمُكَاتَبَةَ فِي الْإِجَازَةِ الْمَكْتُوبِ بِهَا. And also they used mukataba, katabani, as if to say he wrote to me, for an ijazah that was written. And Al-Iraqi talked about that. He talked about writing and saying the ijazah at the end. When he talked about how to give the ijazah. And he said that if you write the ijazah, better to say it too. And if you don't say it, then at least intend. So Ibn Hajar saying here, when they got the pronounced ijazah, they called it mushafaha, or they'd say shafahani. And when they got the written ijazah, they called it mukataba, katabani, he wrote to me. وَهُوَ مَوْجُودٌ فِي عِبَارَةِ كَثِيرٍ مِنَ الْمُتَأَخِّرِينَ. And this is present in the expression of many latter-day ones. بِخِلَافِ الْمُتَقَدِّمِينَ, as opposed to the early ones. فإنهم إنما يطلقونها فيما كتب به الشيخ من الحديث إلى الطالب. The early ones used to only say katabani, he wrote to me, or they used to use mukataba for any hadith that the sheikh wrote to the student. For a hadith that he wrote to the student. سواء أذن له في روايته أم لا, whether he gave him permission to narrate or not. And we know here al-idhn and al-ijazah, those are the same thing. Idhn, permission, and ijazah is permission or license. سواء أذن له في روايته أم لا, whether the sheikh gave him permission to narrate it or not. He's saying, merely by the sheikh writing the hadith for him, or hadiths for him, and then giving them to him written, they called that mukataba. So it's not an issue of ijazah. The sheikh might have given him permission or might not have given him permission. That's the mukataba. لا فيما إذا كتب إليه بالإجازة فقط. They didn't use, those early ones, mukataba, for the sheikh merely writing the license, not the hadiths. واشترطوا في صحة الرواية بالمناولة قطرانها بالإذن بالرواية. And they made for the validity of narrating something that was handed over, that it would be accompanied with permission to narrate. So here, Al-Iraqi, he didn't talk about this where we reviewed, because he started by saying the highest ijazah, if you're not talking about handing the book over, is to specify who's getting the ijazah and in what. So now here he's talking about that very thing that's even higher than where Al-Iraqi started. He said they made as a condition for the validity of narrating by munawala, by getting the book handed over to you, iqtiranaha bil idhn, that would be accompanied with permission, bil riwayah, to narrate. He's saying it's not just because the sheikh gave you a book that you can narrate it. وهي إذا حصل هذا الشرط أرفع أنواع الإجازة. And this one, when this condition is fulfilled, is the highest level of ijazah, the highest level of licensing. So yes, that's what Al-Iraqi said. Because he said the highest one, if you're not talking about handing the book over to, along with the permission. So then this one is the absolute highest. لما فيها من التعيين والتشخيص. Because of what such an ijazah has of specifying the subject and the person. Now, all this talk here became clear for me something. There's a big gap between al-Bayquniya and Nukhbatul Fikr. So al-Bayquniya is usually book 1. Then Nukhbatul Fikr is book 2, unless they change the curriculum. But I don't see really that somebody who's just coming out of al-Bayquniya, not Zurqani's explanation, is going to really understand what this is saying, if he doesn't have more than that. He would be just taking this, and the sheikh would need to be able to unravel it for him. So, وَصُورَتُهَا, and a scenario of that is أَنْ يَدْفَعَ الشَّيْخُ أَصْلَهُ, is for the sheikh to give over his own original copy. Oh, مَا قَامَ مَقَامَهُ, or what replaces it, like maybe he has a photocopy of his original copy. لِلطَّالِب, to give it to the student. I have a copy of Sheikh Wasim's explanation of Tasrif al-Izzi in Sarf. He wrote that, the sharh written with his own hand. He gave me his copy that he wrote with his own hand, and he let me copy it. And he gave me an ijazah too. I said to him, can you give me an ijazah? He said, how do I do it? I said, just say to me, أجزتك في هذا. So he said, أجزتك في هذا. So it is for the sheikh to hand over his own copy, or what replaces it, to the student, to hand it over to the student. أو يحضر الطالب الأصل للشيخ, or for the student to produce the original copy for the sheikh. ويقول له في السورتين, and then the sheikh says to the student in both cases, هذا روايتي عن فلان, this is what I narrate from Fulan. فروه عني, now narrated from me. And yani he means say that or something like that. وشرطه أيضا أن يمكنه منه, and another condition is that he gives him access to this book. إما بالتمليك, either by letting him have it, وإما بالعارية, or by borrowing it. And I read this without a shadda here. But bil ariyah, it is valid with a shadda though. The word, I mean. لِيَنْقُلَ مِنْهُ, so that he can copy from it, وَيُقَابِلَ عَلَيْهِ, and use it for comparison. وَإِلَّا إِنَّا وَلَهُ وَاسْتَرَدَّ فِي الْحَالِ, or else, if he did hand over the book but then took it back right away, فلا يتبين لهذا زيادة مزية على الإجازة المعينة, then there's no clear difference here. There's no clear merit to this over simply getting the ijazah, getting the specific ijazah, but without the book being handed over. وهي أن يجيزه الشيخ برواية كتاب معين, which is what we just said, which is for the sheikh to just give him permission to narrate a particular book. وَيُعَيِّنَ لَهُ كَيْفِيَّةَ رِوَايَتِهِ لَهُ, and then for the sheikh to specify for him his mode of narrating this book. Like, did he get it by hearing? Did he get it by ijazah or what? So that's right here, what he's saying here. This is where al-Iraqi started. For the sheikh to specify who gets the ijazah and in what, but without handing the book over. وَإِذَا خَلَتِ الْمُنَاوَلَةُ عَنِ الْإِذْنِ. And so, when the book being handed over is devoid of permission, لَمْ يُعْتَبَرْ بِهَا عِنْدَ الْجُمْهُورِ. Then this handing over is not regarded according to the majority. Yani, just by the book being handed over does not establish any transmission according to the majority. وَجَنَحَ مَنِ اعْتَبَرَهَا إِلَى أَنَّ مُنَاوَلَتَهُ إِيَّاهُ تَقُومُ مَقَامَ إِرْسَالِهِ إِلَيْهِ بِالْكِتَابِ مِنْ بَلَدٍ إِلَى بَلَدٍ. And some did regard that. Some said, just by the sheikh handing the book over to you, then that establishes transmission for you, even if he didn't permit you explicitly. Ibn Hajar says, whoever went that way, he saw the book being handed over to the student as being just like the sheikh writing a letter to the student and writing hadiths in there and sending them to him from one town to another. So, subhanallah, once Sheikha Nusayba gave me a book. She put it in my hand. She gave it to me as a gift. Rahimahullah. So according to that, then, if I want to go that way, I'll just assume and say, oh, she gave me the book. Now I'm going to open it and read from it. وَقَدْ ذَهَبَ إِلَى صِحَّةِ الرِّوَايَةِ بِالْكِتَابَةِ الْمُجَرَّدَةِ جَمَاعَةٌ مِنَ الْأَئِمَّةِ. Ibn Hajar says, a group of imams, and he says a'imma, that means the big shots. A group of imams went to the position of validating narration by mere writing. وَلَوْ لَمْ يُقْرَنْ ذَلِكَ بِالْإِذْنِ بِالرِّوَايَةِ. Even if that was not accompanied with permission to narrate. So then if you take that way, then you can see how easy it's going to be for someone to get sloppy this way. If someone did want to go this way, and he still needs to be careful and check his sources to make sure he narrates authentically. But now, subhanallah, I was saying to you when we were talking about those levels of ijazah when we went over Iraqi, that you might find something that you're willing to do. And you might find something among all these different types you're not willing to do for your own standards. Like this here. I can't find it in myself just to say, well, some scholars said, if he hands the book over to you, that's good enough. Imams, not just some scholars, some imams. كَأَنَّهُ مُكْتَفَوْا فِي ذَلِكَ بِالْقَرِينَةِ. It's as if those sufficed with a clue. They deemed getting the book handed over as a clue in itself, that to narrate from it. وَلَمْ يَظْهَرْ لِي فَرْقٌ قَوِيٌّ بَيْنَ مُنَاوَلَةِ الشَّيْخِ مِنْ يَدِهِ لِلطَّالِبِ وَبَيْنَ إِرْسَالِهِ إِلَيْهِ بِالْكِتَابِ مِنْ مَوْضِعٍ إِلَى آخَرٍ. Ibn Hajar says, and it hasn't become clear for me, any strong difference between the sheikh handing over his book from his hand to the student and sending, mailing the book to him from one place to another. إِذَا خَلَى كُلٌّ مِّنْهُمَا عَنِ الْإِذْنِ. When neither of them are associated with permission, whether he mailed it or he handed it over, I don't see a big difference between them when neither have permission with them. وَكَذَا اشْتَرَطُوا الْإِذْنَ فِي الْوِجَادَةِ. And also, they made permission a condition to narrate by finding al-wijada. وهي أن يجد بخط يعرف كاتبه, which is for someone to find the hadith in the handwriting of someone he knows, like his sheikh. Like once I saw something Sheikh Samir wrote on a board. So I sat down to write it. That I took it by his handwriting. But I didn't get permission for that though. Ibn Hajar saying, by finding you need permission to narrate. فَيَقُولُ وَجَدْتُ بِخَطِّ فُلَانٍ. So then one would say, I found in Fulan's handwriting. وَلَا يَسُوغُ فِيهِ إِطْلَاقُ أَخْبَرَنِي بِمُجَرَّدِ ذَلِكَ. And it's not permissible. It's not right, it's not good to just say, he informed me, أخبرني, by merely this. إِلَّا إِن كَانَ لَهُ مِنْهُ إِذْنٌ بِالرِّوَايَةِ عَنْهُ. Only if he has permission to narrate it from him. Then he could say أخبرني. وَأَطْلَقَ قَوْمٌ ذَلِكَ فَغُلِّطُوا. And some folks, they said, you can do it without restriction, and they were deemed mistaken. وَكَذَا الْوَصِيَّةُ بِالْكِتَابِ. And likewise, for someone to leave a will about a book. وهو أن يوصي عند موته أو سفره لشخص معين بأصله أو بأصوله. That is for him to leave a will when he dies or when he travels for someone in particular to get his original copy or his originals. فقد قال قوم من الأئمة المتقدمين. A group of the early imams said, يجوز له أن يروي تلك الأصول عنه بمجرد هذه الوصية. It is permissible for one to narrate these originals from the sheikh by this mere will. وأبى ذلك الجمهور. But the majority has rejected that. They refused that. إلا إن كان له منه إجازة. Unless he has an ijazah. وكذا اشترطوا الإذن بالرواية في الإعلام. And likewise, they made it a condition to have permission to narrate by being informed. وهو أن يعلم الشيخ أحد الطلبة بأنني أروي الكتاب الفلاني عن فلان. What's meant by being informed here is for the sheikh to inform one of the students. I narrate this book from Fulan, from Fulan. So is that enough for the student to now go and narrate that book? Because the sheikh told him his source? Ibn Hajar says, not without ijazah. فَإِنْ كَانَ لَهُ مِنْهُ إِجَازَةٌ اعْتُبِرْ. So if he has an ijazah from him, then it will be regarded. So this is nice way that Ibn Hajar is presenting this, because this is like really looking at the topic from another perspective. Yani, Al-Iraqi, he told us what's the ijazah. Here, Ibn Hajar is really telling us what you can't do without the ijazah. All these ones, don't do them without an ijazah. وَإِلَّا فَلَا عِبْرَةَ بِذَلِكَ. Or else, if there's no ijazah, then there's no regard given to that. كَالْإِجَازَةِ الْعَامَّةِ فِي الْمُجَازِ لَهُ. Like the general ijazah for someone. So, general means not for anyone in particular. لا في المجاز به, not for a licensed book or books. That, not when that one's general. I'm not talking about when that's general. Ibn Hajar is saying, he's saying, I'm talking about when there's a general ijazah for people. كأن يقول, like for one to say, أجزت لجميع المسلمين. I permit all Muslims. أو لمن أدرك حياتي. Or whoever live during my lifetime. أو لأهل الإقليم الفلاني, or for the people of such and such province. أو لأهل البلد الفلانية, or for the people of such and such town. So all of those are general, and some of them are more qualified than others. Al-Iraqi told us about that. Remember when he talked about giving an ijazah to the scholars who are on the enemy borders? So it's still open. It's not someone in particular, but it has restriction in it. And by having this restriction makes it more likely to be a valid ijazah. And that's what Ibn Hajar says here. وَهُوَ أَقْرَبُ إِلَى الصِّحَّةِ, and that's more likely to be valid. لِقُرْبِ الْإِنْحِصَارِ, by the qualification in there. وَكَذَا الْإِجَازَةُ لِلْمَجْهُولِ, and likewise the ijazah for someone unknown. كأن يكون مبهما أو مهملا, like for him to be unidentified or overlooked. وكذا الإجازة للمعدوم, and likewise an ijazah for the non-existent. So what did Iraqi tell us about these cases? That these are valid, with details. Ijazah for the one who's mubham, yani the majhul, is valid. That's what Iraqi told us. With some details. Like for him to be unidentified or overlooked. وَكَذَا الْإِجَازَةُ لِلْمَعْدُومِ, and likewise the ijazah for someone who doesn't exist. Iraqi told us is valid. كَأَنْ يَقُولُ, like for him to say, أَجَزْتُ لِمَنْ سَيُولَدُ لِفُلَانٍ, I permit whoever shall be born for fulan. وَقَدْ قِيلُ, and it was said, إن عطفه على موجود صح, if he is annexed to someone existent, then it's valid. كأن يقول, like for the licensing sheikh to say, أجزت لك ولمن سيولد لك, I give license to you and to whoever shall be born to you. So it's connected. الأقرب عدم الصحة. الأقرب عدم الصحة أيضا. Ibn Hajar says, but most likely this is invalid also. So looks like, as you're going to see, I'm going to keep reading, looks like Ibn Hajar is more strict here than Al-Iraqi. وكذلك الإجازة لموجود أو معدوم علقت بشرط مشيئة الغير. And likewise an ijazah for someone present or non-existent, depending on someone wanting that. Depending on someone else wanting that ijazah. كأن يقول, like for him to say, أجزت لك إن شاء فلان, I give you an ijazah if so-and-so wants. Oh, أجزت لمن شاء فلان, or I give ijazah to whoever so-and-so wants. لا أن يقول أجزت لك إن شئت, not though if he says I give you an ijazah if you want. وهذا على الأصح في جميع ذلك, and this is the correct judgment, this is the most accurate judgment in all of these cases. Yeah, this is missing letter bat right here. وقد جوز الرواية بجميع ذلك سوى المجهول ما لم يبين المراد منه الخطيب. He says Al-Khatib permitted narrating by all of these ways except the unknown, as long as the intent of the licenser was not clear. وحكاه عن جماعة من مشايخه, and he cited a group of his sheikhs about that. واستعمل الإجازة للمعدوم من القدماء, and amongst the forerunners who used an ijazah for the non-existent was Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dawood wa Abu Abdullah ibn Mandah, and Abu Abdullah ibn Mandah, like Al-Iraqi told us. واستعمل المعلقة منهم أيضا أبو بكر بن أبي خيثمة. And amongst them, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Khaythama used the ijazah that depends on what someone wants. وروى بالإجازة العامة جمع كثير. And a big group of scholars utilized the general ijazah, utilized general ijazah. جمعهم بعض الحفاظ في كتاب. One حافظ documented them in a book. ورتبهم على حروف المعجم. And he put their names in alphabetical order لكثرتهم, because of how many of them there were. وكل ذلك, and all of that, كما قال ابن الصلاح, as Ibn Salah said, is توسع. It's a stretch. غير مرضي. It's unacceptable. لأن الإجازة الخاصة المعينة مختلف في صحتها اختلافا قويا عند القدماء. Because an ijazah, a special ijazah for someone in particular, is an issue of difference in opinion. Its validity is an issue of difference in opinion amongst the old scholars. Yani, in a strong way. Their difference was a strong one. وإن كان العمل استقر على اعتبارها عند المتأخرين. Although the practice of the latter day ones settled upon giving regard to the ijazah, but still, originally, there was a strong difference about this. فهي دون السماع بالاتفاق. And so, ijazah is inferior to hearing by agreement. فكيف إذا حصل فيها الاسترسال المذكور. So how about then if the mentioned insistence is practiced? Hold on, let's let this truck go past. فكيف إذا حصل فيها الاسترسال المذكور. So how about if this mentioned persistence is done, if this happens, فإنها تزداد ضعفا. This will become ever more weak. لكنها في الجملة خير من إيراد الحديث معضلا. However, it is in general better than producing hadiths with problematic chains, broken chains, chains with two or more people broken successively. Ijazah is better than that, Ibn Hajar says. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, and Allah knows best. وإلى هنا انتهى الكلام في أقسام صيغ الأداء. And up till here ends the discourse on the divisions of the expressions of transmission. Wallahu a'lam. We'll stop there.